Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something, well, pretty universal. Those times when big feelings, especially anger, feel like they've just grabbed the wheel. If you're a parent, a partner, or honestly just a person living life, you've probably felt this.
Yeah, absolutely. So this deep dive, we've tailored it from some really interesting material called From Fire to Calm, Regulating Anger and Big Feelings.
Mm.
Our goal here is to pull out the science-backed stuff, the insights on how to handle things when you feel really upset. Think of it as a shortcut to getting up to speed. So the big question is, what is actually going on inside our heads when we get angry? And maybe more importantly, what can we do?
It's fascinating, really. When we get angry, our brain's threat detector, the amygdala, it just kicks into high gear. It basically shouts danger
Mm.
to your body. Even if the threat is, something pretty minor like spilling your coffee or someone making a snippy comment. And here's the kicker. While that's happening, the prefrontal cortex, that's the bit responsible for reasoning, making good choices, controlling impulses, it can temporarily just, well, go offline. That's why in the heat of the moment, we sometimes say or do things we really regret later. Research actually shows intense emotion reduces activity there. We literally lose access to our rational brain when we're overwhelmed.
Right, so it's like our survival brain takes over from our thinking brain.
Yeah.
Which explains why it feels almost impossible to just calm down sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if the rational part is offline, how do these tools we're going to talk about actually help? Are they like hitting a reset button?
That's a great way to put it, yeah. It's a primal thing, so we need intentional strategies to bring the thinking brain back online. One of the first ones from neuroscientist Dan Siegel is called Name It to Tame It. Sounds simple, but it's powerful. Just noticing and labeling the emotions, saying to yourself, okay, I feel angry or I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. That simple act actually starts to wake up the prefrontal cortex again. It helps bring regulation back.
Just naming it, that seems almost too easy. Is there a risk of, like, making the feeling stronger by focusing on it?
That's a fair question. The key is just acknowledging it, like you're observing it, not judging it or getting lost in it. It's not about dwelling, more like, there's that feeling. That little bit of distance helps. So that's a cognitive approach. What about things we can do physically, right there in the moment?
Yeah, something more grounded, maybe.
Exactly. Grounding yourself in your body is huge. The 5-4-3-2-1 technique is really good for this. When you're feeling that intensity rise, you consciously look around and find, okay, 5 things I can see right now. Then 4 things you can actually touch, feel the texture. Then listen for 3 distinct sounds. Then notice 2 things you can smell. And finally, 1 thing you can taste, maybe just the inside of your mouth. It sounds a bit formulaic, but it really does pull you back from that internal emotional swirl into the present moment. It shifts your focus outward.
Okay, I can see how that would work. Shifting attention. That makes me think about something even more basic, our breath. We always hear take a deep breath, but how does that actually help calm us down physiologically?
Oh, the breath is incredibly powerful. It's directly wired into your nervous system. Slow, deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, that's your body's rest and digest mode. It counteracts the fight or flight response. A really practical technique is box breathing. You inhale slowly, say for a count of 4, then hold your breath gently for 4, then exhale slowly for 4, and hold the breath out for 4, then repeat. There's good research on this too. A study showed this kind of slow breathing literally reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, and improves mood and focus.
It's interesting because when you're really upset, sometimes just remembering to breathe feels like the hardest part. But knowing it actually changes your stress hormones, that's motivating. Does it take practice to get good at using it in the moment?
It definitely does. It feels unnatural at first when you're agitated. But like any skill, the more you practice when you're calm, the easier it is to access when you're stressed. It becomes an anchor. So, okay, we've talked about the brain's reaction and these immediate tools. But anger often leaves, well, like an emotional hangover, right? What about after the storm has passed? What do we do then?
Yeah, the reflection part seems crucial.
Absolutely. This is where the real learning happens. The source emphasizes reflection, not rumination. Rumination is just replaying it over and over, feeling bad. Reflection is more like getting curious. Asking yourself, okay, what exactly set me off there? What did I feel in my body just before? And importantly, what do I need or what could I try differently next time a similar situation comes up? It moves you towards learning.
Okay, so understanding the trigger, understanding the need makes sense.
And then, if things were said or done that caused hurt, repair is essential. Taking responsibility, offering a genuine apology, especially, say, with kids, but really in any relationship. It shows you value the connection more than being right. It models accountability.
That's a big one. Humility and connection.
Definitely. And one more thing for the after phase, rehearsing calm. This means actually visualizing yourself in a similar future situation, but this time you imagine responding calmly using those tools we talked about. And this isn't just wishful thinking. Research shows that mental rehearsal like this actually helps build and strengthen new neural pathways. You're essentially pre-paving a calmer response in your brain.
Wow. Okay. So let's try and pull this all together. We've looked at how the brain reacts instantly, almost hijacking our rational thought when anger hits. Then we got into these practical, in-the-moment tools, naming the feeling, grounding with your senses, using controlled breathing like box breathing, and then the really important follow-up work, reflection, repair if needed, and that idea of mentally rehearsing a calmer response.
Exactly. And the big takeaway from the source material, I think, is really quite empowering. It's that emotions themselves, even difficult ones like anger, aren't the problem. They're just signals. What truly matters is how we learn to respond to those signals. That's where our power lies.
So it's less about never feeling angry and more about managing the response.
Precisely. And calming down or regulating these big feelings, it's not some fixed trait you either have or you don't. It is absolutely a skill. And every single time you use one of these strategies, you pause, you name it, you breathe, you ground yourself, you're literally training your brain, you're building stronger pathways for emotional regulation and resilience. It gets easier with practice.
That's a really hopeful way to frame it, which leads nicely into our final thought for you, the listener. When you're struggling with these big feelings, remember this. You're not broken. You're building. Emotional regulation isn't a destination you arrive at. It's an ongoing process of growth, and you're actively constructing a more resilient you.